President Trump confirmed on Twitter that his administration is revoking California's federal waiver on emissions. Now, the state had previously been allowed to set stricter emission standards for vehicles than the federal government has, but now that is in jeopardy. Joining us now is NBC News correspondent Ann Thompson. Ann, I mean, forever people have talked. Yeah, people have talked about California standards and buying a car that meets California standards. Californians who bought cars in other places for decades had to have things tested and changed to do that. Why is this happening now, and what does it mean?
It's happening, I think, for two reasons. First of all, the president did not like what the Obama administration did. You have to remember it set these very stringent fuel economy standards when the car makers were in bankruptcy. They are supposed to go into effect from 2020 to 2026. Trump wanted to roll that back. California said, well, you can do that, but we have our waiver. And so we're going to stick to the stricter emission standards because that's important to us, because those greenhouse gases that come out of all those vehicles, they're causing climate change. And California's living climate change, wildfires, droughts, mudslides, all of that. So that's why this is happening.
Who would be pushing the administration to do this? The auto lobby?
No, the auto companies, in fact, do not like what the administration has done.
Then who on earth does this make sense for? If the auto companies are saying, no, please regulate us, and the governor of California is saying this is better for the people of California who are suffering mudslides and fires, who exactly is saying, no, let's roll it back?
The guess is the oil companies.
Yeah.
Because more efficient cars use less oil. We have 5% of the world's population, and we use a quarter of the world's oil output on a daily basis just for transportation in this country. But the trick about California is that so many cars are sold in California that de facto the car companies have to deal with California's higher standards.
Right, and what the auto industry doesn't want is there to be two standards in the country, one for California and one for the rest of the country. So, in fact, we had Ford, BMW, Honda, and Volkswagen all agree that they are going to abide by California's stricter standards. Well, the president didn't like that, and in fact has the Justice Department investigating those four automakers for antitrust violations.
Which is kind of remarkable. We don't think of antitrust. So the idea that they got together to say we'll abide by these standards. Think about it from a business perspective. If they got together to do anything else, we'd think that's antitrust, right? That's anti-competitive behavior. So now that's what the Trump administration is saying.
Yeah. This is in fact
it's an interesting use of antitrust. It's not what we thought it was for.
Right. In fact, California's Governor Gavin Newsom just held a press conference and essentially said, look, this is payback for agreeing to California's stricter standards.
Does California, can they do anything about this?
Yeah, they're going to go to court. I mean, first of all, they think they held a press conference and said there is no legal basis for the president to do this. California has had this ability since the Clean Air Act in 1970. They pointed out the governor of California who pushed for this waiver was Ronald Reagan. And they say
last I checked, he was a Republican.
Yeah, he was. And they have said they have made these, they have to make the waiver requests every time. They've done it 100 times. It has been granted 100 times. This, they say, doesn't have a legal leg to stand on. And in the meantime, for the auto industries, now there's uncertainty. And that's what, as you know, business hates. Because the question is, now, do they assume California is going to win and start building
their cars that way,
for the stricter standards, or do they build? They assume the Trump administration is going to win, or do they build two kinds of cars?
They just want to know, whatever the industry is, they want to know what are the rules, what do I have to adhere to, what am I paying, and then I'll figure out my game.
And here's the really interesting thing. I was just out in Detroit covering the GM strike. Okay, what is GM trying to do? GM is trying to move the company from internal combustion engine cars that run on gasoline, to cars that run on electricity. GM sees electric cars as the way of the future. The administration, President Trump, thinks that electric cars are too expensive and says that we should have cheaper internal combustion engine cars. That may be, But because someday somebody is going to regulate the price of carbon in this country, the automakers are trying to get ahead of that and produce cars that won't be impacted by that.
It's useful to remember that in this country, clean air, clean water, EPA regulations, the creation of the EPA, all of these things were done, or many of them were done under Republican administrations, both at the state level and the federal level. This used to be a bipartisan issue, and in fact, Republicans in this country have a history of having taken the lead on environmental issues.
Richard Nixon signed the EPA into law.
That's correct. Hey, MSNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there and click on any of the videos here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up now.